Well, hello, friends, and welcome to the From Busy to Rich podcast, where we help financial advisors grow their businesses beyond the products they sell, the assets they manage, to increase profitability and reclaim their time by providing strategies and insights that will not only change your life, but practice. With me, as always, Wes Young. And before we jump into today's topic, which is really an exciting one for us and pivotal as a foundational component for everything that we do from the transform side of things, I'd like for Wes, if you could, just give everybody a quick recap. Hopefully they've gone back, listened to the previous episodes. But for those of you who are just overly anxious and excited to get to where the story's going, Wes will provide a quick recap, and then we'll dive into today's portion.
Yeah, you got it, Justin. Good to be with you. And for those of you who don't know, I think it's important for you to know, behind the scenes, we have Bill the Beautiful. He is making sure this podcast goes down well. He's helping us orchestrate everything we're doing. So thank you, Bill, for being a part of what we do here every week. Last week, what we spent time doing is really this fundamental, and it's really a core value of our organization about normalizing new. We can say it a lot of different ways, like this is about navigating the tension between tradition and innovation. And I love this quote, Eric Hoffer. He said, "In times of change, learners inherit the earth, while the learned find themselves beautifully equipped to deal with a world that no longer exists." So we spent last week talking about this tension that exists in all of us, the gravitational pull of organizations, of people, individuals, generally becomes to defend the way they've always done it, to defend their normal. And you can look at great examples. We talked about Blockbuster and Netflix, how Blockbuster had the opportunity to buy Netflix in its early days, and they just kept defending the way they'd always done it. And 10 years later, Blockbuster filed bankruptcy. Netflix was a $9.6 billion company. Today, north of $250 billion. I don't know what the market cap is at the moment. It made me think about Howard Schultz's story, how Howard was in the coffee business in the early days, worked for this large gourmet coffee roaster, and had this idea that, hey, I went over to Europe. There are all these coffee shops. Love the smells, love the baristas, love the atmosphere it created. And he thought, this takes this high-end commodity purchase that we're selling to this unique community experience. This could be next in the United States. Took the idea back to his employers. He said, guys, we could open these, we'd still gourmet roast our coffee, source it from these small farms. We can still, sell it in our shops, but also we could add a coffee shop in there where people actually come and drink it. We can charge a whole lot of money for it. They're going to want to come and get it. And they said, hey, we're kind of the giants in our little boutique industry. We're not interested in really spending a bunch of time, energy, and money on this untested idea. We're going to continue to do what built us to where we are. Howard was undeterred, went out and started his own sidewalk cafe coffee shop experience. It was actually called Il Journal back in the day. And it was an enormous success. Within about 16 months, he had 4 of these stores. He would actually buy his former employer, and he would drop the Il Journal name and assume theirs, which we all know as Starbucks. One of the greatest business opportunities. And I think, Justin, one of the things that in this story, people, it's always easy in hindsight to go, well, what idiots, the former owners of Starbucks. But the thing is, they had built a really successful organization. They just did what most of us have the tendency to do. They began to defend the way they'd always done it and reject new because there is a cost to new, right? There's a cost to that experimentation. Howard Schultz wasn't about throwing out everything that had made Starbucks successful. He still wanted to source the coffee, roast it in the custom way, sell it in the stores. But he said, hey, let's test this idea of actually having a coffee shop in the stores where we can create this community experience. It turned out to be one of the greatest business success stories in history.
I love this as a topic just because it hits you no matter where you are in business. When you're brand new, right, nothing's working well and you're trying to figure things out, but you need to do something.
Mm-hmm.
And so you've got to pick something and you're challenging kind of what you're used to from a normal standpoint. Or if you've been in business for a long time and things are going, let's say, well, you've grown well to this point, but kind of like the coffee scenario there, Starbucks looking at the future, what could progress and grow you even further or faster, it becomes really difficult to embrace that as a concept because you're comfortable with where things are.
Totally. And so the big idea from last week and we're going to continue on this theme today was that our greatest opportunities to recognize our future possibilities is not about abandoning your normal. It's also not about rejecting new. It's about keeping tension between the two. Because all of us, as you just said, Justin, have a normal. We have a current way we're going about making progress in life in all the areas we care about. So certainly this is a business podcast, so your professional life, but your financial life, your relationships that you have, your physical self, and then your spiritual life. All of us have a way. If I was to follow you around and audit your life, or you were to follow me around and audit my life, you could see what is Wes's way of going about making progress. And all of us can have a new, which is a transformed way of doing all that stuff. And so if we're going to be our best, because while different isn't always better, better is always different. And we all want one thing. Everybody listening today, and all of us on this podcast as we record, we want our life to be better, and we want to be better at life. But we can't have that if we don't have a regular diet of normalizing new ideas into the organizational rhythm of our day, in our week, in our year. And so what we did last week is we talked a lot about the most fascinating part of this is like the things that show up: fear and fatigue, that prevent us from normalizing new, that cause us to defend the normal. Fear simply being that, man, what if I do it and it gets worse? Because that's a real thought. If you mess with the secret sauce, new Coke wasn't that great. It ended up being great because it made people want old Coke even more. But new without new, you are going to eventually be beautifully prepared for a world that no longer exists, because technology changes, markets move, how we dance in society and in culture move. And so to have this regular diet of new in our week, it's not going to a conference one time. It's not reading a book one time. It's having a regular diet every single day, like taking a vitamin, where we are every day putting this into our day to evolve to our next big 10x jump. And we can do this for the rest of our lives, even if you don't continue to work in the same industry. What is next on your list? And what kind of person, what are the person that you want to become? What are they doing today to evolve to that? And so we talked about this from a business standpoint, the fatigue side. That's another reason that gets in our way from actually normalizing new ideas, because new is like, it's never added to your bottom line, right? It's never paid your mortgage. It's never produced anything outcome, because by definition, it's new. And so fatigue, you could fill up your day with your normal already and still not get to everything on your list. And so when we are like saying, we go to a conference, we get these ideas, we listen to the From Busy to Rich podcast, we go, oh, that is a great idea, I want to implement that. And a year later, we go, why didn't I do that? What is the thing in us that prevents us from doing the things that even if we get past the fear and we say, hey, I'm willing to try it, right? I'm willing to evolve, because different is always better, but better is always different. So I'm going to try some stuff that doesn't work, or I'm going to try some stuff that doesn't work yet. Most people listening to this podcast, you're strivers. So you're like, man, give me the new ideas that are going to accelerate it. The thing that often gets in our way, in addition to fear, if we get that out of the way, is this fatigue. Simply that I'm going to run out of time before I run out of all the ideas and opportunities I could go pursue. And what ends up happening is we tend to pursue the things that scream the loudest, not necessarily the things that matter most. And so if we don't make this a priority in our lives, even if we have a great intentions, because we say, direction determines destination, not our intentions determines destination, direction does. What do we have in our lives that is moving us in a direction of normalizing new ideas into our organizational rhythm? And we spent a bunch of time talking about this last week, and really we camped on most of the kind of guardrails you need, which is, first, you got to be great at your normal. And to be great at your normal, you have to have defined what your normal is. So we went through these 4 distinctions: the what, why, who, and how of your business right now, and kind of teased out what ours were. Because the thing is, a lot of times, if you've not taken the time to do that, you'll go, man, things aren't going well. Things aren't working the way I want them to work. But what are you doing? Like, what is your normal right now? Because to mess with it, you got to know what it is. And you got to decide, am I just not being great at the things I've already agreed are going to move me in the direction of my future, of the things that are going to run? Am I nurturing my normal well? And so we talked about all those. This week, we're going to talk about the other guardrail. And this one is one of my favorites to discuss, because I do think we can get really good at our normal. We can define our normal. But if we aren't challenging our normal with new, we're never going to inherit the future that we want ultimately most. And so what I want to spend time on these four distinctions. So last week we had four distinctions: what, why, who, and how, to define your normal, to be great at it. This week we have four distinctions to normalize new into the rhythm of your organization and into your life. This works in all aspects, all areas of life. So I'm going to break these down for you. It's ideation, resolution, orchestration, and then iteration. So ideation, resolution, orchestration, and iteration. And this is really about a couple of these four things, these four distinctions. It's about protecting time. And it's not time at the end of the day when you're tired, time at the end of the day when, maybe I come up with a little extra time and I can try this. This is your best energy, because in taking new ideas from new to normal, it's harder, right? Think about the first time you learned to drive a car, or if you taught kids to drive a car. I mean, you could drive and eat a sandwich, and not that you should do this, but send text messages, right? You can have phone calls, and you can get from my house to the gym. I can do that on autopilot. It just happens. The first time you drive one, it is like your highest level of concentration. Or if you watch a kid learning to tie his shoes for the first time, I mean, it is like struggle, and it's harder, and it requires different energy. So you can't put this off to like your worst time where you're tired at the end of the day. This has got to be some of your best energy. And oftentimes new ideas feel like you're cheating on the real work, because it's like, but this is what's got me to where I am, but it isn't going to get you where you want to go. And I think that's the thing we have to come up with in our head. So I'm going to go through these four distinctions in detail, talk about how we utilize them. But any thoughts on any of that, Justin, before I jump in?
No, I just think about, you even mentioned going to the gym as part of the point of concept here. The first time you go to the gym, you're really sore afterwards. Yeah. Or if you've taken a break, Christmas break comes along, beginning of the year, you're going to pick back up. It's amazing how that same amount of effort, no real changes, just the inputs that went into it for being normal versus seemingly new again, changes the dynamic of how it feels getting back into it, or if you're first doing it. But then give it a couple of weeks, and all of a sudden, now that same routine no longer creates that same type of soreness, and you start to grow and develop, and you can actually add to it. You've got more capability, not just within what you're doing, but how it impacts all the other areas of your life. And I would say that as far as the people I know from a business standpoint, and I know ideation is exciting for you, because for those of you who don't know, Wes is an ideas guy. He loves ideas. But what is really, and if you question that, then you should see the 72 podcast references from this morning alone that I'll get at like 7 a.m. Like, hey, somehow I digested 12 hours in the last 30 minutes. There's a bunch of these ideas. But he's really good at, and this is what I'm excited to share, is as far as people I know that's best at this, about creating a rhythm. And that's what we're going to get into, is like, where do you capture the ideas? Where are you looking for new opportunities? And then how do you process that to move through a cycle so that you're not overwhelming the system on the front end, but that you're intentional about making sure that it's always part of our business?
Hey, thanks for tuning in to From Busy to Rich. If you're listening and something sparks a question, or you just want to explore these ideas further, visit us at wesyounglive.com or email us at info@wesyounglive.com. You'll find free resources, tools, and ways to get in touch. We'd love to hear from you.
I love that. And that brings us right into I think the first one, which is this ideation. So ideation, for you to normalize new, you have to be in environments where new is showing up in your life, challenging your normal. And that can happen a lot of ways. One is it can happen through listening to this podcast. We're introducing ideas maybe you're not yet doing. It can happen by reading a book. It can happen by going to a conference. Also can happen, we recorded a podcast with my friend Mike Scoville, and one of the things he said is proximity to people that are up to something. You put yourself in. I love having coffee with friends and clients a couple times a week that they're just up to something. They're different. They think different. Going to strategic coach like you and I do, Justin, once a quarter, full of entrepreneurs, full of people growing their business, and full of people that are not afraid to challenge the normal. They're not afraid to wrestle or dance with the resistance between where they are and where they want to be by integrating new things in. So what in your week, what in your year are you doing to ideate? Ideation is really just that process of either coming up with new ideas or listening to things that are going to put new ideas on your plate. And so a couple things we do on a regular basis to do this. One is, as you just mentioned, Justin, I devour podcasts, right? I listen to them. I send them to our team. I don't know how many people listen to all of them that I send, but I'm like, this is a good one, and here's why. And because podcasts for free out there, there's a ton of places you can go and just get new ideas in your head. For all of you advisors listening, like the Small Business Tax Savings Podcast by my friend Mike Jesicek. He, every week, you want to be better in the area of tax in innovative ideas that maybe have nothing to do with a product you sell or money that you manage. But you think about this, most of our clients are in the 37% tax bracket. So before money ever hits the market, we're talking about a 37% win that if we any dollars we can repurpose that's unnecessarily going away to the IRS. Don't we care about that? Because if our win is to help increase profitability or inspire people to increase profitability and quality of life, that's a big area. So things like that, things like this podcast, things like Ed Milet's show is a great one. Andy Stanley Leadership Podcast, another awesome one. You could, the list, Joel Osteen, you want to be positive, you want to think different, listen to Joel Osteen. There is a number of podcasts, and we'll in the show notes put a list of just ones that are right now the things that we're listening to on a regular basis. But there's a lot of free information out there. Reading books. So our team, you want to make this intentional in your organization. Our team every Thursday. So yesterday morning, we're recording this on a Friday. Yesterday morning, we're right now going through the book Atomic Habits, and I'd read the book before. We always pick a book or a study or a TED Talk or something like that, and we listen to it. And then our whole team spends about, probably 30 minutes just talking about what were your takeaways. Because for some people on your team, depending on how they're wired, that may be the only ideation they're actually getting in their life. Like it may be the only thing because you've got it on the calendar. And the inspiration is the deadline. We use that all the time, right? When you have it on the calendar, all of a sudden you different. So if you think about this, in your morning, what is your routine? All of us have some routine where there's no reason you can't have an earbud in, listening to a podcast, listening to an audiobook. I very rarely read books anymore, and I do know how to read. I just very rarely read them, but I listen to a lot of them. And I have a note-taking device on my phone where as I hear something good, I will hit my little record button and say, this, and this. And I just am constantly putting it in. And we'll talk about what the parking lot is like in a second for new ideas. But what is feeding you new ideas? Are you in a coaching program of some kind? Transform is a great way to get ideation going because it's a scheduled every Wednesday. We're kicking one off. We kick them off every 6 weeks or 6 months. Do it twice a year. We record all of them. That is a great way to be, one, in a room with people that are up to something, and two, get new ideas that are going to make your practice better, and especially increase your own profitability and quality of life, but do the same thing for your clients. Conferences that you're going to. Where is this? So if these things are absent from your life, no ideation is going to take place. Or if it does, it's by accident. Be intentional about this. Put it on the calendar. Where are you going to ideate? Where are you going to come up? And I really recommend you have some mechanism to capture those ideas as you're hearing them, because we've all heard ideas. And I love Samuel Johnson had a quote. He said, we need to be reminded more than we need to be instructed. It isn't always the brand new ideation, the brand new idea that changes our lives. It's being reminded of, man, that is a good one, and I need to do it, or I need to start doing it again. So schedule your time for ideation. It's got to show up on the calendar, because these things, all this, what we're going to talk about today, is all about the compound effect. And the compound effect is the gym analogy is probably the easiest one. If we want to get in better physical condition, what do we need to do? We need to eat right, and we need to work out. And if you work out, the thing is, one time a year, even if you worked out for 8 hours, that is going to have no beneficial effect, probably a negative effect, honestly. But if you work out 30 minutes a day, 5 days a week, even for 2 months, you will experience the cumulative value of small investments of time, which is the compound effect. Challenge with it is there's like no real detriment for missing one single installment, right? You're like, well, like if I got in late last night, we're at a big event here, in Frisco, Texas. And I did not go to the gym this morning. But you know what? I don't look any worse than I did yesterday. And when I go to the gym, nobody tells me. When I come back, Jamie never tells me, you look so much better. You look so much better, because the compound effect is cumulative. And so this ideation is cumulative. All these things we're talking about are cumulative. So ideation is a big one. Then you got to have a resolution. So a resolution, you might be familiar with these, our listeners, with New Year's resolutions, because once a year, people like to look at everything they don't like about themselves and their life, and they say, radically, I'm going to change all this stuff. And then my gym is very empty by the middle of January. Very busy the first part of January. The people are on my treadmill, they're showing up, and it's like, just calm down. This will go right back to normal after a while, because change has to be scheduled. And you can't change everything all at once, right? It's like going to a buffet. Everything may look good. You just can only eat so much in a single sitting. So resolution is a decision to do or not to do something, or in some cases, not to do something anymore. So if you are going to be somebody who challenges their normal with new, not only do you need to ideate and you need to capture those ideas, we always call it capture it in the parking lot. So these days you can download a million apps. My current one that I'm using is Evernote, and Evernote, as I'm listening to a book, I'll have that as a note in there, and I'll just take down, what am I pulling out? What am I pulling out? And once a week, I kind of scrape through all those ideas, and I put them on this parking lot where I have hundreds of these things, because eventually what I'm going to do with those, and most of the time this happens in Strategic Coach, where I'm looking at, hey, where am I now? Where do I think we want to grow to? And of all the things that I have in this parking lot, what are the one or two things that I think are really going to move the needle for us? And we decide. And what things were we doing that no longer we're going to do to get us to where we want to go? They just don't serve us as well anymore. They've expired. Maybe they served us well at some point. Maybe they never really served us that well. There's those things too. But what are we going to actually decide to do or not to do? And you've got to have this scheduled. I would recommend at least once a quarter, taking the time to say, where do I want to go next over the next 90 days? Where am I starting from? And of all these great podcasts and books and conferences I've been to, what is it that I actually am going to put on the list? So thoughts on resolution?
Well, I just think it's such a critical next step, because I'm sure for many of you listening, you can relate to having gone to a conference and having a bunch of great stuff come from it, great ideas. Then a year passes by and you're at the same conference the following year with nothing having changed.
Absolutely.
You implemented none of it. It's not that the ideas weren't good or that any of them were relevant. It was that none of them were followed through. Getting to that point, that critical step of defining what is the right one or two things, because you're not going to do all of them. Like,
Absolutely.
That's just the reality of it. You're not going to change everything overnight, and you likely wouldn't want to. And that's not how you would do any science experiment, right? You change one variable and then monitor the results.
Totally.
So picking one is crucial. And then I think that leads into the next step, which I'm excited to talk about, is how are you going to plan that as far as an implementation?
Absolutely. Orchestration, right? So you think of a conductor of an orchestra, when that orchestra is warming up before he's up there, it's noise. I mean, it's just people are doing different scales, different rhythms, different paces. He stands up and he brings everybody together and makes them move in harmony. So what you have to do is say, all right, of these ideas, they're not a part of my existing rhythm. When am I going to do them? It's putting them on the calendar. How am I going to take this new idea from new to normal? And then you schedule it out. It sounds simple, very hard for people to do, because new ideas, normal always tends to bump this new thing. I'll get to that later. Anytime you got a new system you want to implement, a talk you want to be able to give, a new CRM you want to implement, you've got to have a tactical way over the next 90 days. When's that coming on the calendar? And again, it needs to be some of your best high energy time. Which brings us to the last one, which is iteration. Iteration is when you do something new, one, you're probably not going to be great at it yet, right? And so it's like, that's why people go, yeah, I tried that, it didn't work. Well, did it not work, or did you not get good at working it? Is kind of the distinction there. And so iteration is that once a week to say, how did I do? How did this work this week? And was it because I bumped it? I didn't actually do the thing I said I was going to do. Is it because I did it and I was bad at it and I just don't have enough reps with it? You were not great at driving a car. You were not great at tying your shoes or riding a bike when you started doing it. But over time, it became muscle memory. And so is it just, I need a few more reps with it. So, and sometimes it's like you learn by doing something and then you go, that was good, but if we change this one thing, it would be great. And you get better at it because you're inventing the future here. And the thing about inventing the future is inventors have to experiment. If Thomas Edison, I don't remember how many times, it was like thousands of times that he unsuccessfully said he tried to develop the light bulb. But then he said, no, they were steps, necessary iterations to get me to the place of the outcome I wanted. So be comfortable with things not going great. And some people, because they want to look good and they want to feel good, being in this place of normalizing new things, trying new things on, it just is going to be a little harder than things you've polished. And so thoughts on any of that, Justin?
When it comes to iteration, it's coming down to the results. It didn't matter how many times Edison failed at creating the light bulb. What he's remembered for is he did it.
That's right.
Like, yeah, so I created the light bulb. And it's the same thing here. It doesn't matter how many times it's going to take you to do it. It works the same thing. And from a negative standpoint, you don't gain 50 pounds overnight of bad weight.
That's right.
So don't expect 50 pounds to come off overnight when you're trying to go the other direction.
One meal does not make you fat.
But the same thing in reverse. It's one workout's not going to make you skinny, right? Like it's that iterative components. And then once you get to a certain point, a generalized plan gets you so far, but you have to continue to refine that to optimize it for you, customize it for what your goals and objectives are.
Yeah, no, I think this has been great, Justin. Again, our greatest opportunities to recognize our future possibilities, not about abandoning your normal necessarily, also not about rejecting new. It's about keeping the tension between the two.
It's awesome. We hope you all enjoyed today's episode. If you want to see additional resources about what we discussed today, you can find the link in our show notes or head directly over to our website, wesyounglive.com. Hope to see you next time, and thanks for listening.